Today's BHS Google training is about forms, part 1. What are they? Why do I want to use them? And how do I make one? So we're going to look at each one of these topics. Some are going to be very quick and easy, and others we will spend more time looking at. So what are Google Forms? Well, remember that Google is best for collaborating. But there is so much more to Google that we as educators can use them for. So again, what are forms? Well, they're an easy way to collect data. Why do I want to use them? Well, you can collect data about your students. You can collect your work from your students, but we're going to talk about that next week. And you can also actually give a test in Google Forms and have the form automatically grade that test for you. So how do I make one? Well, that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing I want you to do is to open the form All About You. It's in the Shared With Me folder in your Google Drive. And what I want you to do is I want you to complete the form, and I will show you on my end what it looks like. So if I go to my live form, this is what the first page looks like. And depending on how you answer certain questions, you will be taken to different pages and get different questions than somebody who's sitting next to you. So now that everybody has finished filling out the forms, let's look at the information that was provided. So these are my responses to the form that you just filled out, and you can see over on the left-hand side that this timestamps it. So if you have an assignment that is due at 8 a.m. and it is timestamped 8:05, you have indisputable proof for the student that they were late in getting that in. I can see everybody's name, if they have kids or not, how many they have, and so forth. And one of the nice things is I can sort on these. So we'll look at that later. So that's a real simple form. This is what the form looks like in the design mode. And these are my responses. And this is what the form looks like from the respondent's standpoint. So what it looks like from the author's standpoint as you're designing it, and what it looks like for the person who's actually going to complete your form. What's nice too is that they've just added this functionality right here so that you can let the people who are taking your survey, completing your form, they will know how far along they are. So this is only 20% into my survey. Okay, so before we go in and start making a form, let's look at how we can format our form. So there's a number of different question types that we can incorporate into our form. We have a text question that we can put out, which is just a short and simple couple of words for the respondents to type in. Typically, I use this for name. A paragraph is when the respondents are asked to provide more information than just a couple of words. Multiple choice, obviously, respondents are provided with an option that's defined by the creator of the form, and they can only select one option of the choices that are provided, as opposed to checkboxes where you can choose more than one. So if I say, which business teachers have you had, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. McCandless, or Mrs. Hebert, you can check, I've had Mrs. McCandless and I've had Mrs. Hebert. So you can do more than one. I choose from a list. The respondents are provided with options in a drop-down list, but you can only select one of the options. So like, what month were you born? So you would click on the drop-down list and you would choose one of the months. You were only born in one month. You cannot select more than one. The scale, you choose a number between 0 and 10 in the response. So, how did you like this workshop? I was very unsatisfied. I was very satisfied. And then you've got the grayscale in between. There are 5 different bubbles that can be filled in, or 10, depending upon how many you provide to them. And so they just click one of the circles, one of the bubbles. And then the grid, you can choose a response from a 2-dimensional grid or a table, and we'll put each of these into a form that we're going to design together. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to your drive. Now we opened up the All About Me from the Shared With Me Google Drive. So now in your drive, I want you to go to, let me do that again. So you found that form under your Shared With Me. Now you're going to go back to your drive. So click on your drive and you're going to click Create. And unfortunately, mine is taking a little bit of time to open up. Okay, so under Create, we are going to choose Form. Notice that each one of these has a different icon so that you can tell a spreadsheet from a form. So we're going to go into Form. And it's going to create our base form. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to make the title of this. So we're going to call this Upper Adams School District Staff Data. And we're just going to choose the default theme. So click on OK. And before we actually start entering our questions, you can put in here a description of what this survey or what this form is intended to do. So I'm going to click in Form Description. And would you please type in, "Thank you for helping us gather data about our staff." And as I fix my typos. Okay, so thank you for helping us gather data about our staff. Okay, the next thing I want us to do is actually not type in a question. What I want to do is I want to break down this form into two sections, your personal data and then your Upper Adams School District data. So there are three buttons over on the right-hand side. This first one allows you to edit. So if you've already saved a question, you can go back in and you can edit it. The next one is you can duplicate a question. You can duplicate a question, and that's fine. But what I would not do is try to rearrange your questions. You can rearrange them. The problem is that in the form it will be rearranged, but on the spreadsheet, on the recipient's end, the columns will remain in their original position, so that if you have name as your first question, address as your second question, and what class period are you in as your third question, and really you want to know their name and then their class period, and you rearrange number 2 and 3, you flip their spots on the form. When you open up your responses, it will still have name, address, and then class period. So if I do that, what I typically will do is delete the form. Hopefully I'm not too far into it, and then start again. One of the best tips I can give you when making forms is to lay out exactly what you want to do before you start putting it together. It will save you time, it will save you headaches, and it's just a better practice. The third button over here on the right is your delete. So this area right here, we are not actually going to make a question, so we're going to delete that. So we now just have our title and our little description. And under Add Item, we're going to click on that. And you'll see that there are 3 columns. The first column are our basic question types. In the middle are our advanced question types. And the third column is our layout. And this is what we're going to look at right now. I want us to go to Layout and make a section header. Again, we're going to have 2 sections, one for personal information, one for Upper Adams information. So we're going to make a section header. So click on Section Header. And we're going to call this Personal Information. We don't need a description. It's just going to be a header, so we're going to click on Done. Okay. Now we're ready to actually start adding some personal questions. So we're going to click on Add Item. We get our pop-up. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for their name. So this is just a short and sweet kind of an answer. So we're going to choose text. Okay, so we're going to type in name. Now, you have to do a little bit of thinking from the user's standpoint. how could they interpret this? Well, maybe Tracy just puts in Tracy. Maybe Jackie puts in Jackie McCandless. Maybe Karen Peterson types in her name is Peterson, comma, Karen. So you want to specify to them how you want this. I typically have my kids put it in alphabetically by their, or I have them enter their name by their last name, then their first name. This way, I can sort alphabetically the responses later on to put them in gradebook order when I go to transfer my grades over. So I'm in my question title is name. I'm going to hit the tab key, which will take me to my help text, and I'm going to type in last name, comma, first name. So they know I want last name, then their first name. And I'm going to leave it as text. And what's nice too about these forms is you can require a question. So I typically will require an answer for every single question that I put on a form. There are a couple exceptions, but what this does is it will not allow them to move on to another page. It will not allow them to submit the form unless they have answered every single question on a page or within a form, depending upon how long your form is. So I'm going to require a question, and then I'm going to click Done. And there's our first question in our form. All right, now we're going to add another item. It's going to be a short answer, so we're going to click on Text. And this time we're going to type in current town of residence. In other words, where do you currently live? Again, it's going to be a short answer, so we're just going to use text. We're going to require the question to be answered, and we're going to click Done. Okay, now we're going to get we're going to start adding some of these other types of questions. So what we're going to do now is we want to know when they were born. Maybe we're going to do birthday celebrations, or we're going to sort them by month. I don't know. But it gives us an option here where we can do months. So under the advanced, we would come down to date. I'm sorry, no. We're going to come over to choose from a list. I forgot what I was doing. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to type in month of birth. And down here, this is our choose from a list. So down here, we're going to say January, February, and we're just going to enter all the months. May, June, July, and December. Okay, so we've got all of our months. Again, it's going to be a required question, and we're going to click Done. And I can look at this and see that they're all in there if I want to. So we've got our form. We've got 3 questions in our form. We've got our form beginning to be built. So let's just look at what it's going to look like on the recipients, on the respondents' end rather. So up at the top here under the menu bar, you'll see View Live Form. So I want you to go ahead and click on View Live Form, and it will show us what our form currently looks like. Okay, we went with the default theme, so it's just a gray background. So go ahead and complete your form. And what's nice about the drop down is I can either click and choose and click on it, or with my blue selection around it, I can just type an N and it goes right to November. Now, if you've got a J, it'll go to January. So it's not quite as user-friendly that way. So if I were a July, I might say JU, and it would jump down to July. Okay, but I'm going to go to November, and I'm going to submit the form. Okay, and what it does is it then says, this is the name of our form. Your response has been recorded. Now, one thing that we're going to look at later on is it's set up to default to submit another response. Now, if you utilize a form to give a test, the kids could do a second test. If you're doing a survey, they can enter information more than once, but we'll fix this in a bit. Okay, so we've taken the form. So let's go back to our form that we're building. Okay, we've just filled in our form, but where do we see our data? Well, up at the top where we had the View Live Form button, there's also a Choose Response Destination. There's also an Accepting Responses. I can click on that and now nobody can see the form, nobody can fill it out, or I can turn it back on and I'm now accepting responses. So let's go all the way here to the left and say Choose Response Destination. And what it wants to do is it wants to set us up with a spreadsheet. So it wants to make it a new spreadsheet and name it basically what we've named the form, but then it has responses in parentheses at the end. We can either choose that or we can say a new sheet within an existing spreadsheet, which is something that Terry is utilizing with her classes right now, but that's a later date. That goes up to the next level. So for right now, we're just going to stay with a new spreadsheet. And you'll see it's going to take your form responses and put it into a spreadsheet. So we're going to say create. And what it does is it then puts this into our Drive folder wherever this Upper Adams staff data form is. But notice it now says View Responses. So it went from Choose a Destination to View Responses. So let's click on that View Responses button, and it will open up the spreadsheet that we just completed. So again, here's our timestamp, date and time, and here's what I chose. It was only 3 questions, so we're not going to have a whole lot of responses. All right, looks good so far. So I can close that. I can close this. This is where we had filled out the form, and I'm going to go back to where I'm building my form. Okay, so I have my month of birth. So I'm going to add another question. This time I want to know what time of day were they born. So I'm going to say time. So what time of day were you born? And you'll notice it makes us say hour, minutes, and AM, PM. I'm going to make it a required question, and I'm going to click Done. I could choose a duration. How many hours did it take? Hours, minutes, and seconds. Or I could just leave it as what time of day. So I'm going to click on Done. So now I want you to add a new text question. And the question is, what state were you born in? So again, we're going to click on Add Item, go to Text. What state were you born in? Oops. I'm going to require it, and I'm going to click Done. Okay, so that's all the personal information we really need about the people. But now we want to get some specifics about their experience at Upper Adams. So as we did with the personal information, so we put a section header in here, we're going to put another section header in next. So I'm going to click on Add Item, go over to my Layout column, and choose Section Header. Okay, so this section header is Upper Adams School District information. And my description is, the following section contains items about Upper Adams School District. About Upper Adams School District. I'll just abbreviate it. And I'm going to click on Done. So that's now my section header. All right. The first question I want is a date. So I'm going to come down here to date, and I'm going to say, when did you first start working for Upper Adams School District? Okay, and you'll see we can include the year or we don't have to. We can include time if we want to, or we don't have to. I'm just going to leave it as month, date, and year. And I'm going to click on Required, and I'm going to click on Done. Okay, so now we're going to add another item. This time it's going to be checkboxes. So whereas we've done a drop down, we're now going to do checkboxes so they can choose more than one. So we're going to click on Add New Item, Checkboxes. Which school's students do you teach? Okay, so again, it's checkboxes. If you chose the wrong thing, you can always click here and choose the kind of question that you actually want to use. So I'm going to leave it as checkboxes. So we've got BHS. I can hit the Tab key to go to another option. Upper Adams Middle School, Tab, Biglerville Elementary, Bendersville, Elementary, Arnsville Elementary, or some of us teach at more than one school. So Jackie teaches at both the high school level and the middle school level, so she could choose more than one. But some of us teach at other schools, like Heather. Heather, has got the Bridgewater Academy. So I'm going to say add other, so when she's responding, she could actually type in Bridgewater online classes. Or let's say, I don't know, let's say Abraxas was, you had a part-time job at Abraxas for the school. You could type in Abraxas. So that you can have kids fill something in. Now, when you have them fill in either text or paragraph or this other, and you say it's in a test, and you have Google grade your test, it will not grade these text fields. So just understand that. It'll grade the checkboxes, and it'll grade the multiple choice, it'll grade some of these other things, but it cannot do text because there's just too many variations that people could answer. Okay, so again, we're going to make this required, and we're going to click Done. So 2 more question types we're going to utilize. So the first one is going to be a scale. So rate your lunch's time period. Okay, so again, it's a scale. I can choose 1 is low, 0 is lower, 5, or I can go all the way up to 10. I'm going to leave it at 5. So my 1 is low. So I want to say my lunch period is way too early. Or is it too late in the day? Again, I'm going to make this a required question and go ahead and click on the Done button. Okay, and so there's our scale. Again, it's got the 5 radio buttons that people can click, and it's way too early, it's a bit early, I don't care, it's about right. It's a little on the late side, or it's way too late. All right, let's do one more kind. Let's do the grid question. Okay, so which is better? And you'll notice down below we've got rows and we've got columns. So I want to set up my columns first. So along the top it would be okay, or good, great, and best. I've only got 4 columns that I want to fill in. Once you get those 4 typed in, now we're going to do the rows. So down the left-hand side we will have lunch B, lunch C. Eating at my desk, or nibbling all day long. Maybe I'll say the English and history hallways, the music hallway, the science and math, business and language hallway. Okay, so people can grade each of these hallways based on they're okay, they're good, they're great, or they are the best. No competition here. And click required, and then click done. Now, remember before when we filled out the all about me? Let me see if I've got a completed one. Nope. Okay, so if I go to the live form and I were to fill it out, oh, we had done, it was the upper atoms. Let's just click on live form. Sorry about that. If we click on live form, when we got to the end, remember it said, thank you for submitting. Well, this is where we can change this. So at the very bottom, I'm back in the UISD. This is my design mode. At the very bottom, it says show link to submit another response. We don't want the kids to fill this out more than once. So I'm going to uncheck that. And instead of your response has been recorded, maybe we say, thank you for helping us collect data on the Upper Adams School District employees. Now, whatever you want to say. Okay, now you can provide a link or you can send the form. And there are two ways we can send the form. There's either a button at the top or where we just were down at the bottom, we can send the form. So what I want you to do is click on send form and I want you to type in two of the people that are in the room right now. So I've got Rob Boust and Tracy Hebert. I can send a customized message if I want, or I can just send this. And actually, so that you can see what it looks like from my end, I'm also going to send it to me. Okay, so now if I go back to, so once you've chosen two people in the room to send your form to, go back to your Gmail. So it's not in the drive because you're sending a message. Go back to your drive and you will see, you may have to refresh. Here's my UISD staff data. So you can see it's a form, and so I can just click on that. And I'm going to, you can see it's here, but when you click on it, it's actually going to go to the form. So you can just click on the link up here and fill out the form. And you should see all the responses from your people in your email. I think I already closed mine out. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my All About You responses. So again, we have our timestamp, we have our names, and we've got our information. So what if I want to alphabetize this by last name? So anytime you hover over what's called this is a column header, this is a row header. So column header, as in column header C, when I click on this, you see I get this little drop down arrow. And there's some choices of things that I can do. So what I want you to do is hover over column D's row header, click on the down arrow, and we're going to sort this from A to Z, from 1 to whatever's the highest number. And it's going to put everybody in who has one child, or has one boy, who has 2 children and then 3 children. Or come over to the column header B and sort this from A through Z. And it will now alphabetize by last name. So that's a nice way to look at your data and see how people have responded. Now here's one more really cool thing. If you go up to the menu bar, click on Form, okay, see Form over here? Go to Form and then go to Show Summary of Responses. What this does is it encapsulates all the information. So here are all the people who completed my form, and it tells me how many have children. It can tell me, it gives me a graph, either a bar chart or a column chart based on the information and who answered what, so that you can get a visual of what's going on. For this question, what's the highest degree that you have earned? Most of us have master's degrees. Apparently, nobody has a doctorate. So that's just kind of an interesting way to look at your data. If you like the forms, and if you want to know how to, again, the Google is set up to be a collaborative space, but it can do much more than that. I've already got my classes completing worksheets utilizing Google Docs, and I collect it in one spot. And as I said before, you can also use a form to give a test and have Google grade that test. So if either of those are of interest to you, come back next Monday, and that's what we'll look at. All right? It's now 3:20, so it's time to go home. Thank you.